4 separate LA casts, which again, kind of like I was saying, kind of fed off each other in regard to like what they laid claim to, how the cast was going to be, whether it's super stringent, screen accurate, costumes, performances, props, and mine. Let's roll with it, have a good time, be somewhat accurate as we can. Sins, or okay, they already have their flavors, let's just fuck around and do what style. And then Dark Refrain is just, it was its own dimension on its own in regards to what they're going to do, when, who's going to show up, at what time. It was a complete fun and type of like, they were just there to have a good time and not try and put up like a perfect pantomime show. So, and then of course CI, I love the fact, and that you know, guest performance, they have that flavor where they're not going to be completely analytic like that mind, shut out people because they look a certain way or don't whatever. They kind of give the love. If you love that character, they make the effort to actually get the costume. You know, and that's kind of the, you know, CI represents that Rocky purist thing. You know, and at the same time, they're not competing against each other, where it's like the LA cast or whatever, it's like we have to be kind of picky what we put up there. One is audience, and two is, you know, kind of like our reputation amongst these other casts and stuff like that. So that kind of hurts other people who want to do the role, do the costume and stuff like that, but have been shot down because of, you know, at that time, they're like, you know, that's not what we're looking for when, you know, so.
Flash Gordon, quarterback, New York Jets. Actually, I stole that line from Larry Vizell at the last time. But there's an example of crediting properly.
And there's a throwback to the last.
Love you, Bernie.
I'm Bernie. I ran Sins for the better part of a decade. I was a part of the foundations of Wild Hunting Things, which Parker was on, and had a lead position in that group. And I have been around the globe, and I've seen a lot of different casts, a lot of different styles. I think my opening remark would be that I think that there's no right or wrong way to do Rocky, but whatever you're going to do, you have to A, do it well, whatever that definition is, but I think gone are the days of the 80s where people just got up and did shit at random. And I don't think you can do that and maintain an audience, and I think that you do a disservice to the rest of us, and you create a bad reputation in the community if you do that. And there are groups that still get up and do that, and they're also the type of people that don't pay for rights to the movie, which is a whole other thing.
Come to the cons.
And they don't come to the cons like us. I do think that you have to listen to your audience, and that's the most important thing. I don't think that you can maybe you can kind of decide what kind of show you're going to do and then market it to a certain group, but I think that if you go to an existing cast and become a leader, or you talk in a meeting where you guys want to maybe change your direction, I think you need to know what your audience wants, and you got to give it to them. And if it's not what you want to do, then you need to find a different group to perform with or a different audience somewhere else. You can't force feed an audience what they don't want, because you will drive them away. And if you drive them away, your show will close down and you don't have anything to play around with. So ultimately, I think that you need to always, no matter what you do, be conscious of what your audience wants, whether it's accuracy or it's creativity. And there are audiences that want both, but you have to recognize which one you have. And yours may change. It may do this during the course of your time, and you need to know what's going on and be savvy like that.
It's got to be organic and open.
Alright, I'm Gail, currently the casting director for Midnight Mayhem. I was originally Broadway Bound and Gag, Come As You Are. I've also worked in Tucson with Heavy Petting, and I've seen the up and down throughout the 11 years that I've done the up and down throughout it. And thanks to this one, I'm known as a cashless army bitch because I do everything. So, when it comes to the costuming, I've always been the one everyone goes to for help.
Alright.
I'm Tracy, or Rev, or whatever you'd like to call me. Currently a member of Citizens of the Flesh, formerly a member of Midnight Sandy, and Long Beach, Santa Ana, San Pedro, etc.
It's all same cast.
For 17 years, I was also a member of Debt Delinquents in Montclair, California, which was a very loose, almost let's put on a show from like pull 13 people out of the audience. I was also, as part of Midnight Insanity, I started the show at the theater that it was eventually evolved over time and became Wild and Untamed. So I've been on both sides of this. Right now, the opening statement is not to reiterate what Bernie said. I agree with most of it, but it's a case of reading your audience and also reading your cast and reading your volunteers.
I don't have. I'm going to have less to say than I did during the callbacks panel. I'm going to have a few things here and there. But I think my perspective when I was a cast leader before I retired, and my second points are entirely actually have only come up since I retired, and I'm able to see things from a different perspective. But I tried to run a show. You know, I started Rocky. It was a little shoebox theater in a shopping mall across the street from my high school. It was basically drunken high schoolers with Goodwill costumes, and you know, our lighting was a flashlight. Our props were a bench and a sheet. Hence, you know, I use the term sheets and flashlights to describe that level of show. A few years later, you know, and then I quit for a few years. Then I came back when we were across the street at the Valley Art, and I saw a higher level of costuming, a higher level of performance, and I was impressed. A few years after that, I went to Tucson for the first time. I saw trannies, I saw props, and I was very impressed. A year after that, I saw MI for the first time, and I fell in love with the way that they presented the show, to the point where I preached the MI gospel to anyone and everyone who would listen, and I would play videos over and over to my cast and say, look, this is what I want us to be. I was still young. I hadn't really gotten the wisdom of what a lot of what Bernie had to say about listening to your audience. I think also listening to your cast is important to a degree too. But by the time I figured it out, finally, by the time I retired. Isn't that always the way? I realized, oh yeah.
Where's Lowell?
Lowell bugged out of this one. Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
Pardon me 1 second, guys. I had finally decided that I wanted a show that was the best of both worlds. And I think, you know, that's the hardest thing to achieve. Because by that time I'd seen shows other than MI, and I had the influence of two individuals, one of whom was absolutely beyond religious, rigorous about perfect screen accuracy, no variation, nothing. And for him, it was almost like a defilement or a sacrilege to not be perfect to the screen. Like, in his mind, he could have taught MI lessons. I later found out that the guy was a liar and a braggart and burned a lot of bridges back east, but that's a whole other story, and no, I'm not naming his name. The other influence I had for a little while was Devo. And we all know what Devo wants to do, which is basically say, fuck the movie, let's use this as a template for whatever we want to do. I was sort of caught in between these two, and that's what kind of forced me to define my position. And my position was, I believe that any cast needs to be capable of screen accuracy. You need to have that as your foundation. If you don't know your characters, if you don't know your scenes, then you're just fucking around. And I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen this too, we've all seen it, casts that use the, oh, it's Rocky Horror, we're just fucking around, as an excuse for the fact that they have no idea what they're doing, and in many cases they don't care. On the other hand, I've also seen, you know, after about 20 MI shows, and I say this with all respect, the first 4 or 5 times, it blew me away. After a certain point, I noticed that there was a rote quality to it. And that's the downside of a perfectly screen accurate show. It's still good, it's still impressive, but after a while, it seems a bit restricted. It doesn't breathe. So what I finally realized when I was ready to step down, I wanted a show that was the balance between the two. I wanted a show that had that foundation in the perfection, but that was free from that point to go off in different directions and not lose the audience and still be fun and still be true to Rocky Horror. And of course, that's when I quit running a cast. So I haven't really had the chance to ever implement that. But she'll tell you that I did the Love for MI thing for quite a while. And I still think that MI is a standard, to look to for that type of show. A lot of pressure.
Yeah. My experience with coming into Rocky, I came into a cast that was they were right on the cusp of going into a new renaissance, and I was one of the people that helped kind of push in that direction after my experience at a con and seeing the variations. So when I first got to Sins, I didn't know anything outside my box. I knew Sins, I knew of MI, but I'd never been to their show. I had been to their pod show that became Wild Untamed Things. And it was a different show, and it was a lot of the understudies and people trying
second stringers.
Yeah,
people willing to make the drive.
Right, people willing to make the drive from Long Beach to Woodland Hills, which is about an hour and change. And so I saw, I never saw that extreme to one end, but I also, my very first show was Voyeuristic Intentions, which is probably the standard bearer of creativity forever. I mean, they were going since the late 70s, and they've always been kind of an outlaw rock. So I hadn't seen the one extreme, I had seen the other, and I had seen like kind of this middle ground. When I went to my very first con, I was blown away, like breathtakingly blown away by people that really like had the A game of characters, like people that looked so great, like they embodied their character and their mannerism, their costumes were really great. This is before the DVD, so I don't know that they were perfect, but they were fucking great, and to my eyes, it looked awesome. And I thought that to me was symbolic of their passion. And I said, wow, they loved this character so much, like they are right off the screen, in your face. And I fell in love with that. I thought that was something that anybody should be able to appreciate. I also, still once in a while, went down to BI to watch their show because it was in the complete other direction, but very well done, with some just weird shit that nobody thought about. So I can definitely appreciate that.
So could you name off an example of a VI?
Let's see. No, I was going to say. So during the dinner scene, since that's a pretty lame scene, we can all agree, except for you, Dr. Scott's out there, and I'm sorry. It's okay, but it's still a lame scene. And they would break out a Twister board and play Twister during the dinner scene. That was, if any of you have ever seen all of that, that's since the 80s. I'm pretty sure they originated that. They had the coolest spacesuits. I like some of Todd's stuff now, but I would put them on the same level. But they were the first ones to have awesome alternate spacesuits. They were reverse colors, so it was a black dominant with gold trim, and the wings, like, I can't even describe. Like they shot up all the way to here, and it was very like Maleficent spacesuit kind of a thing. It was awesome, and it didn't bother me that the suits on the screen were gold with black trim and these were black with gold trim. They were fucking badass. I mean,
and real fast to go with his point with DI, like when I performed with them, anytime I did screen accurate anything, I was a complete asshole. Because they were like, what do you do? Are you fucking showing off? Yeah, have a good time. So at that point, yeah, you roll with it, have a good time.
And the thing that I respected about them is that, and I knew for me, like, I wanted to be more in the accurate range, but their audience loved it. And they had a very strong, regular audience. And when they, they always packed the house. Their Halloween shows are over 1,000 people, or were back in the day. And their regular shows were, a lot of us, whatever your average is, I would say that your content is probably at least 50% virgin, if not more like 65 or 70% virgin, with 30% regulars at every show, and that's a norm for Rocky everywhere. Not at VI. That was the other way around.
They also have that massage where it's like, unlike you, where you come in costume, and they see you in costume and mingle with the audience, they came in different costumes, in a hearse, together, went into the theater, and you would not see any of them until they
had like, and this is where I got the idea, they had like their pregame costume. Like their and they did not arrive to the theater as Frankenfurter and Magenta or whatever. It was like inspired by and touch of, but like twisted and demented and cool. And I actually, when I started playing Rocky, I was a Brad for a long time, and then I switched. When I switched, I was like, well, Brad, I could kind of hang out in that costume, but like, you don't want to reveal Rocky and be rolling around in your gold shorts before the show, because then when he unwraps, there's no crowd pop. You know, it's not like, hey, it's Rocky, woo, look at him. Like, so I had like a pre-show outfit that was like inspired by VI, and I had like a whole, it was in character and all, but it was definitely not in the costume.
And the way they promoted it was, when you go to their website, all you're going to see are sexy nun outfits getting drunk on Stoli. That's all you needed. That's all they pretty much advertised. That's all you knew of Rocky at that theater, pretty much. You know, he wasn't too, you know, when he had that original site.
Yeah.
Originally, yeah. It's like, yeah, we got hot girls, they're drinking Stoli, and that's pretty much all they did.
Like I said, they're a very outlaw group. But it was cool. It was nice to see that unique extreme. I would say, I completely agree with your point that you must start with knowing the characters. I think if you can't do the characters well, you don't have a right to do them in a different way. Like, learn the character first. One thing that, it was 2000, 25th anniversary, and Dory Hartley was asked, and some of you probably don't even know who she is. We would not be here if not for Dory Hartley, the very first person to ever get up and shadow cast anything, ever. And she got up as Frank during Sweet Tea and started shaking her ass around and being Frank, and she was dressed up and everything, and that's where it all came from. She said, so what's your best advice to anybody who wants to be Frankenfurter? And she said, just be Frank. Short, sweet, to the point. Don't be something else. Don't be this and that and the other. Just be Frank. He's enough of a character. So I thought that it was really profound, and I think that you have to know that character, almost master your character, before you can take your character to a different level. I mean, at the base level, we're here because we adore this movie in some way. We make holy fucking fun of it. I mean, some of us desecrate it in unimaginable ways. But we're here because we adore it, and there's something about it that embodies something spiritually for us, the characters that we connect with, and you know, if you adore it, you admire it, you revere it in some way, you should master the character first and then take it to a different dimension in a creative way.
Well, but then on top of that too, it's also just, in theatrical terms, not only do you have to know your character, you have to know the other characters too. Even if it's not the role you're playing, you have to know what they're going to do, what they're supposed to do. You have to know the film. You have to know the scenes.
Ray Thompson, get up here!
Yes!
I'm not saying another word about voyeuristic intentions, because this man is their original Frankenfurter from 1980, original Frankenfurter. All the stuff that I'm recounting
On stage.
Does he know what he's getting into?
he was a part of.
Not at all.
This is a panel on screen accuracy versus creative interpretations of Rocky Horror.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he's anyone that does good alternate shows is the Godfather right now.
Would you like to introduce yourself, or is Bernie sufficient?
I've just been doing Frank since, Rocky in 1980, Frank a couple of years after that, exclusively Frank. More improv, you know. In my version, it's more of the play version.
It's like your blocking accuracy. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, if you know your screen accuracy, then I think should be able to a little freedom to your character, interpretation.
Yeah. Great underscore.
Yeah, great underscore the one we just made.
Yeah.
Well, you did spend the last 10 minutes talking about his cast.
Yes. You know, I definitely think that if you look at groups around the country, on average, and this is not to be negative to the other side, but on average, the more accurate you are, the more crowd you draw. And I think it's because a new person to Rocky Horror, we just talked about how higher the content of virgins is versus regulars. There's more virgins. And if you have like this totally weird not Rocky Horror thing that you do, they don't get it. Because when you twist it around and warp it, that's an inside joke. And
That's for us.
The cast definitely gets it. Your regulars mostly probably get it. But then the further you go into their less knowledge of Rocky Horror, the more they don't get it. And if that's the only thing that you present, and it's just crazy and weird and not done well, then they don't get it. And that's why you tend to see that casts that have a good basis in some kind of an accuracy tend to have bigger audiences. And I won't tell anyone how to do it, but I will make that statistically backed observation.
Well, and just hold up for 1 second. From a purely business point of view, it's hard enough to get a venue to show Rocky Horror in the first place. You know, and then to jump through the hoops of getting the rights, putting a cast together, this and that. So once you've got a show, you should want to do everything you can to keep it and to maintain and build and grow your audience. So if you are alienating a good chunk of your audience who are there for the first time, because as I made this point in the other panel, every show is somebody's first show. So if you're alienating that portion of your audience, you're not going to get their business again, you're not going to get their word of mouth, or you're going to get negative word of mouth, and it's not going to help your show survive. So, you know, I agree that do Rocky, you know, do whatever style of Rocky you do it the best that you possibly can, but
Just make sure it's still Rocky.
make sure it's still Rocky. Don't, and if you really want to do, in my opinion, if you really want to do something really creative, set aside a night and call it a remix night or something like that, or a hell night like we used to, and so that it's an event rather than a regular thing.
To the point that I was making, though, their show had more than I've ever seen anybody else's show, and all the casts that I've been a part of or seen, had the most dominant amount of regulars over virgins. You guys had the same hardcore group that came every single show, and they would bring some new people, but it was more sprinkled, whereas most of us have a shit ton of virgins, and much less regulars, percentage-wise, than what you guys were able to do. So you could do what you did and got it.
Yeah, touching on what he was saying, like specialty shows. VI, we always, we did theme shows, but it was like Hawaiian, or it wasn't specific to like Celebrity Night or Dead Celebrity, or because that really people didn't always get that, or 80s Night, because that was a celebrity too. We would do more what our character would dress as in Hawaiian, or if we all did all our costumes in white, and you know.
And that's the right way to do a theme show. You know, I've seen theme shows where, again, it seems like just an excuse to fuck off, versus, okay, I'm still Brad, I'm just wearing a Hawaiian shirt. You know, versus, oh, I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt so I can do something else. That's not the way to do it.
Art wants to make a point.
I'm so
sorry, Eric.
No, it's okay. I'm curious, though. Really, it sounds like we're really discussing a matter of a degree shift that's almost minimal, because I don't hear about casts anymore that veer off the rails. And maybe you know, it proves your point that I think
They're not around.
That's the thing. I think
I'll make a point using you as an
They
example.
advertise themselves as the worst Rocky Horror cast.
But they're not.
But that's
not anymore.
It's one thing to call yourself, but I think time and experience and these conventions have shown that I think most of us are operating already at that base level. And are we talking about costume mods? Like, you're in my Brad suit. I had sparkle on it, for fuck's sake. But it was still a black suit.
I see you and I know you're Brad.
I mean, are we all just kind of operating within that level of
I think we are now. But I think that, you know, it's still a valid conversation, because, you know, for the longest time, you know, this has been something everybody's talked about. So I thought it was a worthy topic for a panel.
No, the topic's worthy. Don't worry about that.
There's not though. There's so many casts that are still that are we don't know because they're not here. The same casts come to conventions, all the conventions. Occasionally, like in just the last 4 or 5 years, we got the Pacific Northwest kind of involved with the rest of us. But you guys, but Bob, you know this because you guys have been kind of coddled up there in your little Palooza area thing, and aside from Kelly McKibber, like, and Zola, we didn't know anybody, like, since the early 2000s, right? And it wasn't until maybe 4711, or, not 4711, ACO8, where we really started to see a couple of people pop out from that area, and then all of a sudden, like, now you guys have a presence at every con. So there's groups. Florida, for example, has 5 really big Rocky casts. I mean, they play to like nearly 200-person averages every show. They've got one cast that is really on the heavy accuracy side, but with a lot of sass at Cinema Paradiso. And then Wolf's cast does whatever the fuck he wants to do. He's a weird dude.
It's not an all-noon cast.
Huh?
It's an all-noon cast.
There's some stuff out there that we don't know what's going on. Like I said, in Texas, they're in their own little world except for the Dallas cast. The Dallas cast comes to cons and knows kind of what's going on. So you're right, the people that go to cons have all kind of seen it go that way. Plus, by accident, cons kind of created that shift towards accuracy in the sense that there are accurate costume contests.
So they set the standard.
Yeah. But it wasn't a conscious thing. It was just, you know, who looks the most like the character in the screen. And so they kind of set that standard by accident way back. And kind of we all shifted that way. But to the point, you do see that we're all kind of there into that degree now. But there aren't all, that's not 100% true. There's casts that pop up and in a t-shirt and jeans with Chucks on will go play Brad. And
My high school cast.
I'm here to tell you that you know, if you see those people, you should maybe preach them some good word, because I think that people that go there and have their first experience with Rocky Horror be that, why didn't they just watch it at home for, you know, free on Netflix as opposed to paying $10 for a movie ticket or 15 in some theaters?
And it's not like the resources aren't there. You know, you've got Ruth's site, you've got Rockypedia, you've got YouTube videos of every kind of cast out there. So it's not like you can't get that information with just a few clicks on Google. Yes.
My point was a business standpoint, in that a lot of the cast that just go off the rails are also the cast that end up not having good relationships with their theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Despite a good audience showing of people having fun, they're not going to be able to keep those going.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And cast theater relations is a whole other panel, but that's in fact, I'm going to make a note of that. But that is a very, very, very valid point. Yeah.
I mean, our theater manager for Coffee absolutely loved us. We had almost sold out audiences every time, and there were only several people on stage that kind of knew what they were doing, and the rest were just up there to have fun. And I came from Wild and Insane Things, so I had a little more background when I came in, and so I would kind of guide people in the right direction.
Find the balance.
But it's finding the balance between, like, I'm so much more versatile now because I've had to work with so many different people on so many different stages that I can just look at where somebody is and know where I need to be and how to make a scene work.
Yeah.
And so that's really helpful.
And that's where you just have to have those skills.
That's one thing, that's a big thing, is being able to work with the people you're with.
And adapt.
And be able to adapt to it. You know, if you've got, say, you've got kick line. You've got 5 people up there doing kick line. You know, this one person who knows it very well and has it completely screen accurate, everything how it's supposed to be. But the other 4 don't. That one who's got it right is the one who's bad.
Yeah. It's a weakest link thing.
You have to be able to.
Rhythmic art, so hard to get wrong.
I mean, see, in the whole argument of accuracy versus non-accuracy, I mean,
The metronome is built in.
It's come over. Sometimes people have made the argument. It's like doing it completely screen accurate may or may not be easier. because you have something to follow, and you could even live in a bubble, and some people may have a point with that, because I mean, if you want to do something wildly different, you have to commit 100% to it, or else it's just else you're just going to lose it. You can't. It's best not to live in a bubble when you're on stage, when you're performing for something. It's like there needs to be connection from audience to cast, and from cast to cast themselves.
Now, it's funny the topic is screen accuracy versus creativity, because if you had one or the other, it would just die and just not exist. If you had complete accuracy, guess what? It's great, but it dies out, gets repetitive and boring. If you have complete creativity, they're like, okay, it's creative, but it looks like you're not trying because you're not really accurate. So, like, even though I've been on 4 casts, they give you a set of rules. Like, you're going to be this accurate. You're going to be semi-accurate, you know, somewhat creative. You're going to be completely creative and not accurate. I can never follow those rules. My rule with myself is, if my role is up there and it's the scene that, you know, people respect, and it's, you know, it's basically a very well-known scene or whatever, I will do that accurately as best as I can, because that's his time, and that's to respect that character up there. If there's hands that aren't seen on the screen, or if I'm not seen on the screen and it's not interrupting somebody's big moment, I will have fun. Because I have to have the balance, because like MI, yeah, they're like, they want to aim for that stringent, screen accurate, but they need to have fun, and they get a better audience turnout when they cut loose and designate a night where they're going to have a theme and just have fun. And the same thing probably with other casts where it's like, you know, vice versa.
Well, I'm going to follow that really quick, and then the gentleman in the second row, we're going to let you speak. What your character, I think it's important to figure out what your character is doing in between scenes when you don't see them. But having said that, I have no problem with having a little fun as long as it's in character in that time. Yes, sir. You've had your hand up forever.
Well, I was just about to say that casts that I was in, which I was in very briefly, the management of the theater we were at cared more about doing rave parties than Rocky.
Was that the theater that I owned?
Not unless your name is Davis Wallace.
No, it was out here.
But no, you did care more about Rocky.
Then that's not, I mean, you know, it's hard for Rockies to find a theater, but that's not the theater you want to be in. Yeah. Hey, a rave night would be okay. Really, if we want to talk about Rocky and raves, I would defer to RKO Army that throws a rave a month. But, you know, RKOCon next year.
This has been your latest plug.
I'll be there. We all do it.
Yeah. But, okay, so, interesting. I love that point that you made, Paco, because I got to see, like, most of your evolution. And you started out just doing characters. And you grew into a master, real master of riffraff. And the things that you do are perfectly things that I could see riffraff doing if you know, Richard had thought of writing the script that way. And that's where I think you do the best service to the character and your creative expression.
Well, but at the same time, do it where it's like, okay, it's riffraff, it's doing his morning thing, he's not doing anything, he was there. But if it's one of Columbia's seldom scenes that she's actually whatever, never upstage that. Never upstage.
And that respect level is really key.
So, yeah.
Really, really key.
It's like when it's like downtime, nothing's going on, whatever, you don't even know what's going on the screen, then add something to it, and they'll think like, well, you're doing it accurately, but I can actually see where your hands are going. I can't see what's going on the screen. That's probably what's really going on, and it's innovative, or it can be accurate. It's fun.
So two things. One, I want to say that I think that it's really like, you don't have to get every fucking wink right. Okay, I do for Brad. That's my character that I go really, you know, high anal with, and I love doing that. I love that part of Brad because I think he's a really anal character, and so I think it's appropriate. As Eddie. I would go up there and just have fun because I think that's the most fun 4.5 minutes in the movie, and he is just a ball of energy. And Rocky is stupid as holy fuck. So when I play that character, I really like goof off a lot.
You go full retard.
I definitely go full retard.
You never go full retard.
That's why you get perfect for it.
But I think going full retard is okay for that character because I think it's within character.
Is it okay to say retard? Just making sure.
You can say retard, just not midget or the FAG.
Okay.
Wait, where's Eric Bishop?
Oh, he told me.
He's not giving you shit.
Anyway, but I think so, costuming. I think that you can fairly inexpensively make a pretty good costume. Is it like, you know, I mean, look, go look at Liz's booth right there. She's got really accurate stuff at a very reasonable price. It's not hard, all right? There's talented people like that make stuff that's exact. There's talented people that make stuff that's pricey, and maybe you don't want to do that, and I don't fault anybody for that. But take some time and some effort into, you know, figuring out what your resources are, and know that you can. I don't know that, but their booth looks really good, and they've got a great boa and a spacesuit and a lab coat, and it's good stuff. It's good stuff. You can go buy that stuff. You can make it. I promise you. You know somebody that can make stuff. We all have talented people around us, and it can be done if you want to do it, if you have a passion for it. And that's, you know, one of the things that, you know, I think that if you do that, if you resemble your character a lot, and you're in their general space, and you're doing what they're doing, I think you're okay. But like I said, if you know, Columbia's hat goes out to here, and then you go down like this, I don't care. I don't think that's important. I think it's important that Columbia has, you know, a gold sequin tailcoat and hat. I think that's pretty important. You know, but yeah, I
Unless
think
you can find a reason to justify why not.
Right, and I think that most of that's been eliminated in this day and age with the level of communication we have and the amount of resources that we have in our Rocky community, let alone professionals. Like, and actually, they really are professionals. But I think that that's possible, and I think that that's one thing that I key in on as a level of effort is I think costuming, and there's another panel about that in a minute. I think that that's a good effort indicator, and that tells me a little bit about a show. And then I look at the characterization. If you're not doing exactly what's on the screen, but you're doing it within character, I think that that's cool too. And to your point, Art, we're in that, you know, moving the needle here to here to here to here to here. You know,
Let me ask you about one specific part of moving a needle. Cross-casting. I kind of want to get a, you know, room temperature for
gender reversing?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen Castle do it once a year as Switch Night. But again, down in San Diego, our system is literally anybody who clears a part can call for a part for any given week. So you have ladies
after the show, I'd love this. I'm so fascinated by this. After the show, they meet together in front of the theater. Crank inverter, Art. Like, well, I don't know, but but that's how it goes.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh, God. He's a microphone. I'm sorry, we're having trouble hearing you.
That's why I moved from over that over there.
Okay.
I'll address cross-casting in my experience really quickly. On the one hand, Rocky Horror is a celebration of sexual and gender diversity. So to get super restrictive about the idea of, you know, male